All right, yep, sounds good. I'll talk to you later. I'm heading to the theater. Yeah, I'm gonna check out Return to Silent Hill. Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm hopeful. All right, man. I'll let you know. Bye. All right. What the hell is that?
This movie's gonna suck.
What is up, guys? Welcome to my review of Return to Silent Hill. This is the third movie adaptation of the Silent Hill video game franchise, and it's actually the return of the director Christoph Gans, who is the guy who did the original Silent Hill movie back in like 2006. After the release of that first film, there was initial plans to follow it up with the same creative team and adapt the second game, Silent Hill 2, which is the most popular of the entire video game franchise by quite a bit. And all of that fell through after they went forward and made Silent Hill Revelation, I believe, which was like a loose adaptation of the third game and was absolutely abysmal. Well, fast forward almost 20 years, and now this movie has actually come to fruition. And the basic premise of this movie is that you have this guy, James Sunderland, that gets this mysterious letter from his estranged girlfriend telling him to meet her in Silent Hill. And after he arrives at Silent Hill to search for her, he discovers that a once recognizable town has now descended into hell and is run rampant with a bunch of creatures, monsters, and other worldly entities. Now, my relationship to the Silent Hill video games, I would say I'm like a casual plus Silent Hill fan. The first game was my first survival horror video game that I had ever played. That game means so much to me. It scared the shit out of me. And it's still one of my favorite video games of all time, and I can't wait to see the eventual remake of it because it desperately needs it. And as far as the first video game adaptation back in 2006, I like that movie. I do think that it's one of the better video game adaptations. Now, there's a lot of things about it that do frustrate me. They do way too many changes to the story and the characters and the lore that I never really found was necessary. There's things that they throw in there just for fan service, like Pyramid Head, that make no sense to be there. But overall, it is one of the better video game adaptations that has aged pretty well. Now, I think that's more of a comment on how bad historically video game adaptations continue to be, but nonetheless, it's a good one. And this guy coming back to adapt the second game, when I first heard that, was something that I was optimistic about. It was something that I saw more reason to be excited than nervous. Well, it pains me to say this, but Return to Silent Hill is significantly worse than I ever feared that it could be. Not only does it fail miserably at being a movie, it fails infinitely more at being an adaptation of Silent Hill 2. Well, starting off with the positives for Return to Silent Hill, I think that the lead actor, Jeremy Irvine, does a pretty decent job for what they give him to work with. His character of James Sunderland is somebody who is very much consumed with guilt, regret, and torment of the past. And I think that through most of the movie, whether it's his performance or just the way that they use certain makeup effects to make him look disheveled and tired and distraught, he does a pretty good job at conveying those types of emotions throughout most of the film. Now, narratively, they don't give him a whole lot to do besides walk around with a flashlight and look surprised, like, But for a story that is quite literally a man's descent into madness, and Silent Hill is just kind of the personification of all of that, I do think that they do a suitable job at portraying that through the character. I also think that the movie does have a number of moments where the production design is commendable. I think that some of the areas, especially when you're in like the otherworldly side of Silent Hill, the more hellish version of Silent Hill, they do a really good job at making the environment look like a otherworldly version of what we just saw, where it's very much covered in rust and grime and has like this red amber feel to everything. It's almost to the point where you can like smell or taste the rust in the air. And just like your journey while playing the game, I think the movie does a pretty good job at recreating how like slowly these environments that James is going through and us as the audience is going through, they start to become a lot more uncomfortable as he descends into the town. They start to have a little bit more of that hellish look to them. They have a lot more of an isolation factor to them. So their ability on a production side of being able to recreate things like the apartments, the hospital, the labyrinth. I, again, think they do a suitable job. The score and the sound design of the movie was done pretty well. Now, there's a lot of notes from this that is seemingly just taken directly from the score of the video game. It's a little bit rearranged, so it's kind of a bit of a mixed experience in that way, where I think some decisions to change things just really didn't make any sense, but nonetheless, it is the same type of score as the game, which is very good. It fits the story and the environment and the look of the movie very well. And some of the sound design, like the creature effects and the static on the radio, those are recreated pretty well also. And the last thing that I'll say here, even though I feel like a number of them are over CGI'd, they do a pretty decent job at recreating some of the classic and iconic monsters, both just like cannon fodder monsters as well as some of the bigger like boss characters of Silent Hill 2. They have the armless creatures, you've got the nurses, you've got Abstract Daddy, you've got the final boss, which I'm not going to elaborate on because it's kind of spoilerific, but visually, they do a pretty good job at eliciting not only some nostalgia in the video game fans, but also creating something that's very disturbing to look at for people that don't expect those monsters to show up. And now moving on to the numerous things that they absolutely fucked up about this film. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I am going to keep this spoiler free for a good chunk of it when I talk more about the movie itself, but inevitably I am going to have to talk about how it changes and adapts things from the game. And so that will lean more into spoilers. I'll let you know before I get into that. But whenever you are watching and especially reviewing a film like this, that is a video game adaptation, especially if you are somebody who has a pre-existing knowledge and experience and attachment to the thing that they are adapting, you kind of have to experience what you're watching through two different lenses. One is just a movie in and of itself, and how successful is it at being a movie? And the second one is, how good of an adaptation is it? How well do they take the source material and adapt it to the screen and the runtime that they're given? And I'll tell you now, I think the movie fails miserably at both of those. Now, most of my spoiler-free is going to deal with just talking about the movie itself, so we'll start there. I hated the look of this movie. From the very get, that was the first thing that stood out to me, even before I started to get frustrated with anything else, was why does this movie bug my eyes so much? It is so overly lit. It is so artificial looking, almost like they're trying to recreate the glossiness of a video game cutscene, that to me, it was distracting, and it created this like impenetrable, uncanny valley the entire time. Even before you start to get into these supernatural elements, even before you even get to Silent Hill and you have to recreate the fog and the ash and, you know, the world changes and all that stuff that have to lean into CGI and supernatural elements. Just scenes of James and Mary just meeting on the fucking road look so artificially lit and artificially glossy that it just destroyed the immersion of the movie to me. And that becomes all the more distracting whenever you actually do get into the more supernatural heavy side of the film, which is the vast majority of the runtime. I really don't understand why they decided to make everything look so digital, like trying to recreate Silent Hill almost like they're trying to do the Upside Down in Stranger Things, where everything has to be on a blue screen or a green screen and everything has to be digitized. But nearly everything in this movie just doesn't look convincing. It doesn't look immersive, because you know you are watching an actor that is standing in front of a screen, and most of the things you're looking at are digital, which also leads to the problem of everything having to be overly lit, because that's something that happens when you're using a screen, is you have to get rid of shadows, you have to get rid of all the imperfections. And so a movie like this that should be baked in this darker atmosphere, where especially in some of the tighter environments, there should be a lot more shadows, there should be a lot more obscurity in what we're seeing. Everything is crystal clear. That is not good lighting. That is over lighting like a motherfucker. And then as far as storytelling goes, this thing is a fucking mess. Like, it is terribly paced, because for some reason they decided to implement these flashback sequences all throughout the movie, which, spoiler alert, is not a part of the game whatsoever. But they have multiple sequences where they're trying to build out more the relationship between our lead character and the woman that he is searching for. And so at random points in the movie, he'll just stop in the middle of a fucked up looking environment after he just saw a creature or something. He'll just stop because he sees something that reminds him of something from the past. And then you'll just flash to like this 5-minute sequence in the past, in the real world, that's really bright, overly lit, just like everything else. And not only does that just break the momentum of the storytelling, but it breaks any amount of tension, any amount of fear or discomfort that you're trying to build with the more horror-centric side of Silent Hill, because they're constantly hitting the pause button at those heightened moments and then basically showing you shit from what should be a completely different movie. And then that's when the real frustration sets in and the real disappointment sets in, because Silent Hill 2 is a very deep game. It's thematically rich. There's a lot of things that you can unpack, and fans have continued to unpack for decades, but it is a storyline that I think you could find some way to do a 110-minute version of it if you keep the key elements of the story, the key elements of the themes of that story, and the character arc especially intact. And they didn't do any of that. There are so many things that are just artificially shoved into this film that were never a part of the original story, that don't add anything to this version of the story. They don't make any sense why they are there, and they take screen time away from things that absolutely are integral. And so what you end up with is a story that leaves so many things unanswered, so many things ambiguous in a way that's frustrating and annoying, and leaves so many things just undercooked and condensed that had no development, that are vital pieces to the story and the themes of this game. And so by the end of it, you just have this scattered, jarring, empty experience. Added in with the frustration that the things that they choose to be nondescript and ambiguous about, you genuinely need to understand to figure out why the fuck it's there in the first place and what relevance it has to being utilized in this story, contrasted with things that they decide to just absolutely spell out, take all the nuance and all the ambiguity out of it, and literally spoon feed to you as if you're stupid as an audience member. All of those elements are the things that are important to leave ambiguous. Those are the things that you should have to unpack and think about and develop theories around and discuss it with your fellow movie viewers and try to unpack how it ties to the main character and everything else. Those are the things that are supposed to be the mystery boxes of Silent Hill. And they just open it up and flat out tell you, like, hey, here's what Pyramid Head represents, which is insulting on two different levels. It's insulting on one level of, okay, you threw a bunch of shit in here that clearly you had no idea how to actually incorporate into your story. And rather than solve that problem, you just leave it as is and try to hide behind ambiguity and put the responsibility on me as a viewer to figure shit out when you as the writer clearly didn't figure that shit out. And then insulting on a second degree of all the things that should be able to be uncovered by the end of this story. If you're paying attention and you adapt it the right way, you just fucking give me the cheat code by the end of it and say, don't worry about it. This is what it means. For some reason, in their pursuit of trying to be much more of a cerebral and psychological experience versus kind of the more, I don't want to say action-packed, but a little bit more activity-driven experience of the first film, they forget to have any type of boss fights, boss battles, anything like that that's not just integral to the video game experience, but pretty integral to the story that they're adapting to. And so it just kind of feels like a movie that never really rises into any sort of actual excitement. It's just slow burn descent. Even sequences where they literally have bosses from the game show up in the movie, they're not there for a boss battle sequence or a fight or anything like that. They're just there to be there, and then we just fucking keep on keeping on. And the last thing that I'll say before I start to get into the more spoilerific stuff of the adaptation is that every single thing they did to change this from the original source material only made it worse. It didn't serve the story that they were adapting, nor does it serve this new version of the story that they're trying to tell here. None of it made any sense to change whatsoever. And there's one level of frustration that you have as somebody that knows the source material, which is not everybody, where you get frustrated at changes because it doesn't resemble the thing that you love. It is all the more frustrating when they do that for no fucking reason and no gain whatsoever. Like, you think back to needless, harmless-ish changes from the first movie adaptation, where we're not following the dad, we're following the mom. Did that destroy the movie? Did that really affect it all that much? No, but it was just like a needless, annoying change. Why is it not Harry Mason? Just because you wanted to do something different. Why is Pyramid Head in the first movie? If you don't know who the fuck Pyramid Head is, it doesn't affect you at all. Doesn't affect the movie in that first film at all. He's just another badass monster. Narratively, if you know the games, doesn't make any sense, but The movie itself, it doesn't affect things. Those are needless changes that don't really affect the status quo. All the needless changes they make here absolutely affect the status quo, and they're all for the worse. So specifically judging this as a movie experience, it's pretty much what you expect from a January horror film. It's pretty dull. There's moments where it can be kind of interesting. There's a couple of things done in the production side that are cool, but overall it is instantly forgettable. It is not very effective at telling a good story or having good characters, and nobody's going to be talking about this thing in about T-minus 3 hours. And if that was the only thing that I was judging, this would be a skip it. This would be a movie that I would hover around like a 2 out of 5. I'd be like, look, it's not good. It's not worth your time. If you happen to be sitting there and somebody puts it on, you're not going to be miserable, but it is not worth your time or money. But there's an element to this movie that frustrated me so fucking bad. Part of it is the fault of this movie. Part of it's just being tired of this shit as a video game fan. I'm fucking over these wonderful stories and these wonderful worlds and these amazing characters that we have seen just flourish on the video game side that get these absolute dog shit, low effort movie adaptations time and time and fucking time again. I'm over it. Certain video games are very difficult to adapt because they're not narrative or character driven, or they're just so huge of a story or a world. It's like, why are you even attempting to do that in a movie runtime? Some people have been able to circumvent that and figure out how to crack the code with TV adaptations, like Fallout is doing really well. The first season, at least, of Last of Us did extremely well. And it's felt like for a while that maybe we're starting to get over that hump. Maybe they're starting to figure it out. Maybe studios and producers and directors and writers are starting to take these things a little bit more seriously. It happened with comic book movies. It's inevitably going to happen with video game adaptations, right? Maybe we're there. And then you watch something like this, and it just takes all of the wind out of your sails as a fan, and you go, you know what? No. I don't think we're over the hump yet. We are still sitting here in the hell of garbage video game adaptations. When the fuck will this be over? And you know where the real frustration comes from within me? It's not even my own experience. It's not my own frustration and disappointment of having to sit through this bastardized adaptation when I know how wonderful the actual source material is. It's knowing that so many other people that have not had the experience with the video game, this is going to be their one and only experience with the story of Silent Hill 2. That's what really pisses me off. And that's what truly differs people like me from like a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's fans, where they're just fine getting just fan service, empty fan service, dog shit adaptations. As long as they get the cool little Easter eggs, everybody else can go to hell. They're fine with that. I'm on the side where if I'm getting something that I love adapted to the big screen, and so many people who either didn't have a chance to play it in its heyday or don't play video games or whatever the reason that they didn't have that experience that I cherish are now going to get, hopefully, that experience in the way that they can have it. I want them to have the best version available. When The Last of Us came out and it was almost a perfect adaptation in that first season, I was so happy, not just because I got to experience it, but because so many other people that would never play the video game now know how wonderful that story and those characters are. And now with this, Silent Hill 2 will probably never get that. And even if one day, by the grace of God, we do get a legit adaptation of some of these games, if they do have a great Silent Hill 2 movie or a mini series that actually does the source material justice, so many people aren't going to value it the same way because they've saw your bullshit Cliff Notes version and kind of know the twist reveals and kind of get the gist. And so the shock, the turmoil, the surprise, the experience that's supposed to be there for that story is gone forever for those people. Fucking hate that. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that the version of the story that we get here quite literally feels like somebody read like the Wikipedia summary of the story of Silent Hill 2 and then waited a year and then tried to like summarize it by memory themselves. So it's like a copy of a copy and not a good one. They completely fuck up character motivations. They completely fuck up character arcs. There's integral characters to this story that basically have 5 minutes of screen time and are absolutely pointless to even be included in this version of the story. And the main point of the game is absolutely destroyed by needless fucking changes to who James and Mary are to each other and to the nature of why Mary is sick in the first place. So right from the beginning, you get the feeling that they just don't get the point when you're watching the film. James and Mary are not even married in this. They're just like boyfriend and girlfriend, like an extended fling, which absolutely diminishes some of the grief that is supposed to be an integral piece to this story. Mary is not even revealed to be dead until like the middle of the second act. They punt that for like some stupid, pointless plot twist where James is just like, oh, Mary sent me a letter and maybe she's in this town. The whole point of building that supernatural intrigue in the game is that his fucking wife has been dead for 3 years. And now he just got a letter from her saying, hey, I'm alive. I'm in this town. Come find me. How do you fuck that up? All the side characters from the game that are all pretty integral in their own ways are all basically relegated to like a fan service cameo. Eddie is only there to throw up in a toilet, kick James, and then run away like a fucking Looney Tunes character, and then he's out of the movie forever. Pyramid Head is not at all like this looming, stalking presence throughout the movie. He just shows up for a couple of recreated moments and cutscenes from the video game. He is not at all framed to be like the main antagonist of the movie. Added in with the fucking annoyance that the first time that you meet him, they deliberately show you a crack in his pyramid head and that he has James's face, only to then double down later on by showing him drawing a painting to then reinforce how fucking spoon-fed it is that he's a representation of James's grief. And if that's not infuriating and insulting on an intelligence level enough that you felt the need to spoon feed that to me when that is not supposed to be spelled out so deliberately, they do all the more of an insulting move with Mary and Angela and Maria, where for some stupid fucking reason, they decided to cast the same actress as all of these characters. And I don't blame her. She does a decent enough job. But you have the woman who plays Mary also play every other adult female that James encounters in Silent Hill. And if that visually is not on the nose enough throughout the film, they actually show a shot where James finds the headstone of Mary and it says like Mary Angela Laura Crane. They gave her 3 fucking first names just to make sure you understand, hey guys, they're all kind of the same person. You get it? So we fucked up all their characters. We totally stripped all of them of what makes them integral and important to this story and their own individual identities and narratives and themes that are integral to this story, especially Angela and her ties to Abstract Daddy, who is just a random fucking creature that shows up in this movie for this adaptation. Not only did you do all that, you did it for the sole purpose of insulting my intelligence by the end of it. Good job. And then if all that's not enough, they actually fundamentally changed the entire point of this story, the entire arc of James as a character for no fucking reason. In the video game, you've got James who gets a letter from his wife who's been dead for 3 years to find her in Silent Hill, and through his absolute obsession to hold on to any little bit of hope that she's actually still alive out there, you get the devastating revelation by the end that James himself killed his wife, that she was sick, and through his own selfishness and through his own grief and his own pain of not wanting to be around her anymore, not wanting to have to suffer alongside her anymore, he covers her face with a pillow to just get it over with. And through his unrelenting agony and guilt and torment, his descent into hell is a mental, psychological journey of the character to finally face what he has done. And there's multiple endings that take it in darker directions, more hopeful directions, but that is the whole point of the story. The version that they give us is a dude was dating a chick for a while and then they broke up, and then they gave her, she gave him a letter to go find her in this town that they used to hang out and go have fucking crumpets in, Silent Hill. So he goes there and he meets a couple of random people that fuck off after 5 minutes, and there's this pyramid thing that shows up, and then he thinks back to the past and realizes that there was always these weird people around her, this cult that are not in the fucking game, but fuck it, we'll throw it in the movie anyway. And they were feeding her blood all throughout her childhood, so that's what made her sick. And then she was in so much pain that she asked him to put the pillow over her and kill her. And then that's the actual story now. How do you take something so simple and yet so powerful and thematically rich, and you convolute the fuck out of it, strip all of the power away from all of it to give some needlessly changed, bastardized version of a beloved story? Why? These are the types of things that lets us fans know that the people in charge of projects like this don't understand or value or love the beloved thing that they are fucking adapting. They have zero understanding of why it is beloved. They have zero fucks to give about preserving or recreating that experience. It's just a matter of taking beloved IP, taking names, taking characters, taking little fan service moments that we can directly adapt, and then doing their own fucking thing with it for a quick buck. There's no other way to look at a movie like this and not feel that way. You cannot convince me that the writers and the director and the people that put this into motion really love Silent Hill 2 if this is what they're going to do with it. I get the motivation of wanting to put your stamp on it. I get the motivation from a creative standpoint of wanting to do something unique, do something to throw the fans off the scent and send them down a little bit of a different journey, but you still have to preserve the main point and the main thing that we love and expect from the video game if you're going to do that. And they did anything but. So yeah, I never would have expected that this was going to be the movie that was going to get me red fucking hot in 2026. But yeah, we're officially, what, 2.5 weeks into the year and we're already here. So my God, let's just get out of January as fast as possible. Return to Silent Hill is an absolute bastardized adaptation of the video game. And so if you're somebody that does love the video game, that wants something more than just quick, easy little member berries or recreated moments or shots from the video game, if you have standards above that, this movie is going to infuriate you. If you're somebody that has no knowledge of the video game, has no point of comparison, at best, it is a generic and forgettable horror film that is not worth going to the theater for. If you really have that much curiosity about it, wait for it to hit streaming. You won't have to wait long. But all in all, this movie just absolutely skated past disappointment and frustration into being an experience that just kicked up so many frustrated feelings that I have, that I really hope that we get to a point where I don't have to reiterate this ever again. These video games are special. These video games are beloved for a reason. There's wonderful stories and characters and themes at play here that people are genuinely attached to. And if you don't have the knowledge, the care, or the fucks to give to try to preserve that for the fans, or make an actual genuine sensical effort to transfer that experience to the cinematic form for people who have yet to become fans, then just stay the fuck away from these properties. Because I think I speak for the vast majority of video game fans out there when I say that we are fucking tired of it. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Hopefully we go on to some much better movies soon. If you like that, please click over here for all of my 2026 new release reviews so far. I am also going to link you up here to a playthrough that I did on my gaming channel for the Silent Hill 2 remake. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.